And there's the blinds and antes, brought to you by Pizza Hut. Bring home the flavor, only at Pizza Hut.
And what I love about Berkey's game is that he has a dynamic limping range. He has an opening range, and he's not scared to just get in there and limp. He's not scared to sometimes 4x pre-flop.
Right.
Blinds are 20-40. I've seen Berkey do things like make it 200. And I promise you that confusing your opposition generally is good. Sometimes the cost of that is making a quote-unquote bad play.
Rainer
Being
Kempe.
unpredictable, hard to read and hard to figure out.
Right.
These are all things that do aid you in the long run if you use those things to your advantage.
Kempe opening with Snowmen, the 110. And the cutoff. And the small blind of Dan Smith making the call in bad shape with the 2 6s. They'll be heads up and out of position.
We haven't seen too many vicious coolers this tournament, Ali, like 8-6 deuce or something crazy.
And look at this.
I mean, listen, I just want the people to know, I swear on my life, I cannot predict the future. And that's just very odd.
You are a broom rider.
If that deuce came, I really would have been speechless, because this is already one of the weirdest things that's ever happened to me.
Set over set, one of the most horrific situations you can be in. I myself, on one of the few occasions in which I've played a higher stakes buy-in poker tournament, found myself in a similar spot against Gabe Kaplan. Cost myself a cool 20,000 on Poker After Dark. That one hurt. And this one's gonna hurt as well for Dan Smith, who checks it. Over to Rainer Kempe.
It sounded pretty painful. To the great Gabe Kaplan.
165.
Right now, Dan Smith has major problems. And sometimes it's okay to spell out the obvious. Dan Smith, after this hand, could easily be crippled. He may elect to just start check calling. Even so, unless a 7 or 9 of hearts rolls off, Kempe has a lot of great cards to barrel, get check raised in all likelihood, and this is just so brutal for Dan.
And he's using a time extension here. Why do you suppose that is? He knows he's going to continue in the hand. Well, he's not trying to make it look weak, is he?
Of course, no. He's trying to decide whether to call or raise. I mean, there are times you are beat here, and again, being the relative chip leader versus another chip leader, this is an interesting situation because he might be well advised to simply call the flop. However, if he raises it, he does know that he will probably have to go with it. There are some extreme.
475,000.
475,000. Music to the ears of Rainer Kempe with 2 8s in his hand. A set. He's got to believe he's golden here, right? He's not up against the 7-9 and probably not up against the 2 10s. Not impossible, though.
Not impossible, for sure. Golden is a touch more than what he's feeling, but he's feeling pretty good. It's one of these spots where
2 overs in the flush draw come to mind, maybe?
I don't think Smith
Queen Jack of Hearts,
yeah,
no?
exactly. I don't think Smith check raises Jack Queen of Hearts. The hand is too good. You kind of don't want to be forced to sort of fold it given stack sizes or decide you have to get it in because you've put yourself in a spot where
Kempe using a time extension.
pot odds are just too good, and this is a really sickening spot for Dan Smith. I just don't know how I just went out there and said we haven't seen a vicious cooler. I feel bad for Dan. Of course, me saying that did not influence the flop, but it's very weird. I'm having a very philosophical moment.
This is a situation where Rainer Kempe is that speeding commuter train and Dan Smith is that car stuck on the tracks.
In all likelihood, they will get it in. My only question, as crazy as it may sound, is there any way Smith finds a way to get away from this on the flop? Just given that we're on the bubble, he's such a great player.
I'm on in.
And Rainer Kempe says, I'm all in.
Kempe's
I
reached.
call.
Snap
and-
call by Dan
But
Smith.
you notice the trepidation in his voice. He called. He doesn't want to have to play this hand on the bubble.
So
Two
sick.
relative chip leaders.
Heart here would be a good one. 9 of hearts, all right.
It's looking pretty thin at the top of the screen next to the outs graphic.
Does have backdoor hearts. Of course, he can hit that 6, but yes, 9% is pretty thin and just a deflating feeling for Dan at the moment. So brutal.
He's rooting for a heart on the turn. Instead, it's an ace, and now he has one out, one time to avoid a massive blow.
Unbelievable, really.
Really.
Set over set in this situation. Just horrifically cold.
Dan Smith can't connect with the one-outer on the river. Set over set, one of the grossest feelings in all of tournament poker.
Pretty unbelievable.
Rainer Kempe now jumping way up the leaderboard to 4.25 million in chips.
With this series.
Every time you see two pocket pairs, you always envision that set over set fireworks, but it rarely happens.
Dan Smith down to just 175,000 with the blinds at 2040.
And as bizarre as it was that I said that, it is true. We really haven't seen too many coolers thus far.
No, you're right. I mean, the kings and the aces we've seen a few times.
Yeah, that was a pre-flop coolers on
Right.
the outer tables, but on the feature table, you see those two pairs. You imagine set over set and how catastrophic that would be, but for it to actually come down, just unbelievable.
A somber mood in Camp Dan Smith right now. That's what it looks like when your opponent shows you a bigger set. And that's what it looks like when you take all your opponent's chips.